You were expecting someone else? Hey, welcome to Class Act Media. I'm Jack, and it's time to talk about the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker. No relation to Tom Baker, I checked, although Colin did play a character named Commander Maxwell in a Fifth Doctor serial, so that's something. The era of the Sixth Doctor is probably one of the most controversial and polarizing of any of the classic series Doctors. It's not hard to see why. I mean, look at how he's dressed. On top of that, this version of the Doctor is really mean. I think that in canon, the explanation for this was that this was a particularly rough regeneration, so he's acting even more erratically than he usually does. That doesn't change the fact that he's acting pretty undoctory, though. This has to be the most sociopathic Doctor we've seen so far. He'll watch people die horribly right in front of him, and he'll make a little joke at their expense. I mean, the Doctor's never had a strict no-killing policy. He's not Batman, but I like to think he cares a little bit more for life than this. I think the idea was probably to do something similar to the Third Doctor, create a more angry and disagreeable version of the character and mellow him out over his run. A good idea in theory, but the Sixth Doctor's run only lasted 2 very short seasons, so by the time we started to see that character growth, it was already over. The most important aspect of a character arc like that is to pair the Doctor with a companion who helps him become a better person over time. This was why Jo was such a perfect match for the Third Doctor. But for the majority of his run, the Sixth Doctor was joined by Peri Brown, who just didn't fit with Baker's version of the character. First of all, it really took me a while to figure out that she was supposed to be American, cause, well, she's not great at hiding her accent.
Bit of an anticlimax after that journey.
Was that too mean? That might have been too mean. Anyway, as a character, Peri was honestly pretty good. Anytime she got separated from the Doctor, her leaderly spirit and ingenuity seemed to shine through. But when she was with the Doctor, she was a lot different. The Doctor was constantly insulting her and belittling her, and she never really fought back. Anytime she did, he would usually erupt into a furious rant at her. It kinda seemed like she was walking on eggshells around him. She never seemed like she was having fun on these time and space adventures.
You're in space. Why aren't you having fun in space?
Now, I hate to be one of those killjoys who says your favorite thing is problematic and here's why, but I kinda, sorta got abusive relationship vibes from the Doctor and Peri's dynamic. My reaction to a companion's interaction with the Doctor should never be, "Girl, get out of there, this is not healthy!" After Peri came Mel, who I immediately liked better. Her spunky, adventurous, unshakable optimism fits so much more naturally with the Sixth Doctor. When he was being ornery or insulting, she just brushed him off and put him in his place. They seemed like actual friends. Mel gets my award for Best Sixth Doctor Companion, which isn't much considering she was only up against one other person. It's a shame she showed up so late in the game. I would have loved to see more of these two together. Look at the Sixth Doctor action figure. I don't remember him ever wearing a blue coat in the show. Am I just stupid? Am I blind? Did I miss that? But I remember him wearing like the red, hot primary colors. I guess blue is primary color. Can I sue? In my Fifth Doctor video, I said that I didn't think there was anything particularly noteworthy about the kinds of stories being produced during that era of the show. Well, I'm happy to say that the Sixth Doctor's run does not suffer from this problem, both for better and for worse. There was a much darker tone for the serials of this era, which is good. After the blandness of the last few seasons, it was refreshing to see Doctor Who get a bit riskier again. That being said, I think it goes a bit too far. Sure, when I hear about angry parents writing to the BBC back when these episodes were first airing about how the show was too scary for their kids, I roll my eyes. But when I see a guy fall into a vat of acid, scream in agony, then try to crawl out of the vat but accidentally grabbing another guy and pulling him in so they both die slowly and painfully, I start to see where they're coming from. And of course, the Doctor has to make a snide little joke just to rub some salt in their increasingly larger wounds.
Forgive me if I don't join you.
It's not that I don't want Doctor Who to tackle darker themes, obviously, but the over-the-top horrificness of these deaths coupled with the Doctor's unflinching reaction just seems to be very out of place in Doctor Who. Aside from that, though, I appreciated how experimental they were willing to be here. Normally, Doctor Who is just a series of one-and-done adventures, but in the Sixth Doctor's second season, they decided to try something new with a season-long arc. Okay, they've done something similar to this previously with the Key to Time story arc in the Fourth Doctor's run, but they were really just a series of adventures all linked together with a small narrative thread. In this story, called The Trial of a Time Lord, the Doctor is put on trial by the Time Lords due to his repeated violation of their law of non-interference with other planets. Here, it's still a series of vaguely connected adventures, but it's being shown as evidence during the Doctor's trial. Every so often, the Doctor or his prosecutor, the Valeyard, will pause the story in order to make an argument. Things will be cut, rewound, or fast-forwarded through as they see fit, which I thought was an interesting choice. That said, however, it can make for a confusing watch the first time around. See, a running plot thread through this story is that the Doctor believes that the evidence is being changed or tampered with, since events are playing out in ways that he doesn't remember them happening in. Again, a cool idea, but it did make the adventures kind of hard to follow. For example, at the end of the story called Mind Warp, Perry's body gets hijacked by the story's villain, and that's it. We're just left to assume that she's dead now. Of course, they later explain that no, she's not dead, she's just somewhere else now, so that's nice. It kind of left me confused on whether or not I was supposed to enjoy these as individual adventures or as part of a larger whole. One last small thing I'd like to touch on is that, for one season, they changed the typical format from 4 to 6 part serials consisting of 20-minute episodes to 2 to 3 part serials consisting of 40-minute episodes. The change didn't do much to affect the show's writing or pacing, but I just thought it was interesting considering that they would eventually be the permanent format of the show several years down the line. And now it's time to count down the top 5 Sixth Doctor stories, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Normally this list is the 5 I liked the most, but here it's mostly gonna be the ones I disliked the least. I mean, there were a couple that I liked a lot, but for the most part, the stories of this era just fell flat for me. Also, I'm counting Trial of a Time Lord as 4 stories. I know some people would count it as 1, but, I'm not. Number 5, Terror of the Vervoids, the third part of the Trial of a Time Lord. As evidence in his own defense, the Doctor presents an adventure from his own future. The TARDIS receives a distress call from a passenger ship, but when the Doctor and Mel go to check it out, they find that nothing seems to be wrong and nobody's taking credit for the distress call. But all too quickly, people start dying, and it's up to the Doctor to solve this interstellar whodunit. This is the first episode with Mel, as well as the first to finally see the Sixth Doctor start to mellow out a bit, and it's a huge breath of fresh air. On top of that, it's got that sort of classic Agatha Christie mystery tone, at least for the first half. My big complaint is that the way the Doctor deals with the bad guys in the end feels particularly harsh, even for this meaner version of the character. Other than that, though, this is a solid little space mystery. Number 4, The Mark of the Rani. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the Doctor finds that an evil Time Lord known as the Rani is trying to exploit the greatest minds of the time for her own gain. The Rani was basically the show's attempt to recapture the feeling that the Master gave when he first showed up, cause, let's be real, she's just the Master again, just without the personal connection to the Doctor. Still, she's a fun partner in crime for the Master, and seeing them scheme against each other while simultaneously trying to work together to take down the Doctor is great. Plus, this story features what might be the harshest comeuppance any Doctor Who villain has ever received. When it's clear that they've been defeated, the Master and the Rani both attempt to flee in the Rani's TARDIS. Little do they know, however, that the Doctor had been in there earlier and had tampered with the ship's velocity controls, sending them careening to the far edges of the galaxy. Oh, and did I mention that the Rani was keeping T-Rex embryos on her TARDIS? Well, one of them ends up breaking loose and, due to the TARDIS's out-of-control time controls, quickly grows into a full-grown adult. That is a cartoonish level of punishment, and I love it. Number 3, The Ultimate Foe. In the finale of The Trial of a Time Lord, the Doctor figures out who's been trying to frame him this whole time and fights to clear his name, as well as save Gallifrey. I'm gonna try not to spoil who it is, but let me just say that the explanation is equal parts predictable and off-the-wall insane. The way the pieces set up by the preceding stories all start to fall into place and the confusion caused by them is cleared up is genuinely satisfying to watch, and I really love the creativity on display here. Number 2, Revelation of the Daleks. The Doctor and Perry arrive on Necros, a massive planet-sized mortuary. Little do they know, however, that the Doctor's old enemy Davros is also there, scheming in the shadows and slowly rebuilding his lost Dalek army. This one is just straight up bizarre. See, Necros also offers a service where people can cryogenically freeze themselves, and in order to keep them up to date to current news, they have this shock jock DJ guy talking to them at all times. It's so strange and out of place in classic Doctor Who, I kind of love it, and it makes the story stick out in my memory much more. Plus, later in the episode, he kills multiple Daleks by shooting concentrated rock and roll at them. Need I say more? Number 1. Vengeance on Varos. The Doctor and Peri end up on Varos, a world where executions are televised, elections end in torture for the loser, and the government is controlled by a ruthless space mining company. This episode is just dripping with atmosphere. Practically every person the Doctor and Peri meet are hostile, and danger lurks around every corner. Sure, it can feel kind of repetitive at parts, but I found Varos such a fascinating setting that I really didn't mind too much. And not to spoil anything, but the ending is so wonderfully vague that I couldn't stop thinking about it for days afterward. This era may have been light on great stories, but this is definitely up there among the best. The Sixth Doctor was so universally disliked that the next season just started with a new actor automatically in the role. They didn't even shoot a regeneration scene. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the Sixth Doctor's era is not my favorite of the show, but I do have to commend it for being risky and trying new things with Doctor Who. I may not have thought it was a good couple of seasons, but they were certainly interesting. See you next time, guys, and carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice.